California didn't ban these guns overnight. One law at a time, entire categories of firearms quietly disappeared from store shelves. Some were banned by name, others by features, magazine limits, or calibers lawmakers decided civilians shouldn't own. What makes this list interesting isn't just what was banned, but when and why. These weren't obscure designs. They were military icons, engineering landmarks, and rifles and pistols that defined generations. Today, you cannot legally buy any of them in California. This countdown looks at 10 firearms that cross that line, and how history, design, and legislation combine to erase them from civilian ownership. Uzi comes in at number 10, and its silhouette alone tells you exactly what it is before a single round is fired. Designed by Uzi El Ghal in the early post-war years, the Uzi was never meant to be elegant or refined. It was engineered to be compact, durable, and brutally practical in close quarters. The defining layout places the magazine inside the pistol grip and uses a telescoping bolt that wraps around the barrel, allowing the receiver to be shorter than most firearms with similar barrel lengths. In civilian semi-automatic form, the Uzi pistol typically wears a barrel just over 10 inches long, while the carbine version stretches that out to a legal 16 inches, bringing overall length to roughly 26 inches with the stock folded and just over 30 with it extended. Weight sits around 7 to 8 pounds unloaded depending on configuration, giving it a solid, almost indestructible feel in the hands. The simple blowback operating system prioritizes reliability over refinement, feeding from straight box magazines that were commonly available in high capacities before modern restrictions. Chambered in 9mm, the Uzi delivers modest velocity compared to rifle platforms, with effective accuracy realistically limited to short and medium distances, making it far more suited to defensive roles than precision shooting. Iron sights are basic and functional, and while optics mounting options exist on modern variants, the original design was never about customization. The biggest strengths of the platform are durability, balance in tight spaces, and mechanical simplicity, while its weaknesses are weight for its size, stiff triggers, and accuracy that falls off quickly beyond close range. In the current market outside restricted states, transferable or pre-banned civilian Uzis often command prices ranging from roughly $1,500 to over $2,500, depending on condition and configuration, turning what was once an accessible working gun into a collector-driven purchase. California's 1989 Roberti Roos ban ended the Uzi's civilian life in the state overnight by listing it by name, not because of how it functioned, but because of how it looked. Today, the Uzi survives as a cultural icon and a mechanical time capsule, a reminder that sometimes the most influential part of a firearm is not its performance, but the shape that lawmakers decide they no longer want civilians to own. Steyr AUG takes the number 9 position, and when it first appeared, it looked radically different from anything shooters were used to seeing. Developed in Austria and adopted in the late 1970s, the AUG was built around the bullpup layout, moving the action and magazine behind the trigger group to preserve a full-length barrel while dramatically reducing overall length. In its standard rifle configuration, the AUG uses a 16-inch barrel while keeping overall length just under 30 inches, giving it true rifle performance in a package that handles more like a compact carbine. Chambered in 5.56 NATO, it delivers full velocity and practical effective range comparable to conventional service rifles, while the rearward balance keeps the weight tight to the shoulder and makes the rifle quick and controllable in close quarters. The operating system is a short-stroke gas piston designed to improve reliability by keeping heat and fouling out of the receiver, a choice that proved itself across harsh military environments. One of the AUG's standout features is its quick-change barrel system, allowing the barrel to be removed and replaced without tools, an idea that felt decades ahead of its time in terms of modularity. Translucent polymer magazines provide immediate visual confirmation of remaining ammunition, reinforcing the rifle's practical, duty-focused design. The most common criticism has always been the trigger feel, which relies on a mechanical linkage to reach the rear-mounted sear, resulting in a heavier and less crisp pull than traditional rifle layouts. While this limits precision shooting appeal, the AUG was never intended as a competition rifle. It was designed as a compact, reliable service weapon. and that philosophy led to adoption by countries such as Austria, Australia, Ireland, and New Zealand. California did not evaluate it by that record. In 1989, the Roberti-Roos Act banned the Steyr AUG by name, removing its original configuration from new civilian sales in the state. In today's market outside California, civilian AUG rifles typically sell for around $2,000, valued for their engineering and historical significance. For California shooters, the AUG remains a rifle they were never allowed to experience as designed. Banned not because it failed mechanically, but because its appearance represented a future lawmakers were unwilling to accept. Calico M-900 comes in at number 8. And it is remembered almost entirely for a single feature so unusual it still feels like something pulled from a science fiction movie. That large cylinder mounted on top is not a suppressor or an optic housing. It is a helical magazine, and in its most famous configurations, it was designed to hold extremely high capacity in a compact, balanced footprint. Instead of stacking cartridges vertically, the Calico feeds rounds that spiral forward under spring tension, rotating through the magazine body before entering the action. Mechanically, it is an elegant and clever solution, and on a clean range with controlled conditions, the system can run surprisingly smoothly. The rifle and carbine variants typically use a 16-inch barrel, while the overall weight stays relatively manageable thanks to the polymer-heavy construction, and the straight blowback operating system keeps the core mechanics simple. Chambered in 9mm, the platform was never about raw power or long-range performance, but about sustained fire and visual impact, which made it immediately recognizable. The downside appeared as soon as the environment became less forgiving. Dust, grit, or debris can interfere with the helical magazine's spring system, and once that rotation is disrupted, reliability drops quickly. This sensitivity is exactly why the Calico never gained serious military or law enforcement adoption, even though its design drew attention wherever it appeared. Then regulation finished what practicality started. California's magazine capacity restrictions struck directly at the Calico's defining feature. When the magazine is the entire identity of the firearm and the law makes that concept unacceptable, the gun loses its purpose. Without its signature capacity, the Calico shifts from a functional tool into a novelty, something admired more for what it represents than how it performs. In today's free state market, Calico M-900 rifles often sell as mechanical curiosities rather than practical choices, typically priced in the mid-hundreds to low thousands depending on configuration. In California, however, it stands as a clear example of how innovation alone does not guarantee survival, because once regulation removes the very idea that made the design special, all that remains is a museum piece shaped like a firearm. FNFAL comes in at number 7, famously known as the right arm of the free world, and that nickname was earned through real service rather than reputation. Developed in the years following World War II, and chambered in full-power 7.62 NATO, the FL became the standard battle rifle for a vast number of Allied nations throughout the Cold War, appearing on nearly every continent where Western forces operated. Britain, Canada, Australia, and many European countries adopted their own versions, and while stocks, sights, and markings varied, the core design philosophy never changed. This was a serious steel rifle built for reliability, durability, and consistent combat performance rather than lightweight or refinement. Most standard FNFAL rifles are built around a 21-inch barrel with overall length just over 43 inches and an unloaded weight typically between 9 and 10 pounds, giving the rifle a solid, planted feel that helps manage recoil from the powerful cartridge. One of the FAL's most respected features is its adjustable gas system, located at the front of the rifle, which allows the shooter to tune how aggressively the action cycles depending on ammunition strength, fouling, or environmental conditions. This made the FAL exceptionally adaptable and trustworthy in regions where ammunition quality varied and maintenance resources were limited. Accuracy was never intended to rival precision rifles, but it was practical and repeatable at realistic combat distances, exactly what infantry doctrine required at the time. Soldiers valued the FAL because it worked, even when conditions were far from ideal. In California, however, that history carried little weight. Feature-based regulations gradually pushed the classic FNFAL configuration out of legality, treating detachable magazines combined with traditional military furniture as a legal problem rather than a functional design choice. Folding stocks, flash suppressors, and standard grips transformed a historically significant rifle into something regulators no longer wanted sold in its authentic form. The frustration is that the FN-FAL was never a novelty or a trend-driven firearm. It was a proven service rifle that shaped modern military history across decades of real conflict. The law did not challenge its reliability, safety record, or effectiveness. It simply placed the rifle into a category that erased it from normal civilian ownership, turning one of the most important battle rifles of the 20th century into something Californians could no longer experience as it was originally designed. Colt AR-15 series comes in at number 6, and the key word here is Colt, because this is the original lineage that turned an experimental idea into the dominant rifle pattern of modern America. Eugene Stoner's design fundamentally rewrote how rifles felt and functioned, introducing straight-line recoil that pushes force directly back into the shoulder, intuitive control placement, and a layout that made rapid follow-up shots feel natural even for inexperienced shooters. In its classic civilian configuration, the Colt AR-15 typically runs a 16-inch barrel with overall length ranging from roughly 32 to 36 inches depending on stock position, and unloaded weight hovering around 6 to 7 pounds, making it light, fast, and easy to handle compared to older steel battle rifles. That balance is a huge part of why the platform exploded in popularity. The rifle feels less like a single fixed object and more like a system, easily configured for different roles through optics, furniture, and accessories without changing the core mechanics. The direct impingement gas system contributes to that lightweight and accuracy advantage, venting gas directly back into the bolt carrier to cycle the action, which helps deliver excellent inherent accuracy but demands regular cleaning and lubrication to stay reliable. This is not a rifle designed to be buried in mud and forgotten. It rewards owners who understand maintenance and punishes neglect quickly. In free states, that trade-off is widely accepted because the shooting experience is so refined. California did not ban the AR-15 outright by name, but instead targeted the features that define how it feels to use. Detachable magazines combined with ergonomic grips, collapsible stocks, and flash suppressors turned the standard Colt configuration into prohibited territory for new buyers. Compliance versions exist, but they often feel like compromised interpretations rather than the rifle Stoner intended, altering ergonomics and handling in ways that change the entire shooting experience. In today's market outside California, Colt AR-15 rifles commonly sell in the range of $1,000 to $2,000, depending on model and condition, valued not just for performance, but for their historical role in shaping modern rifle design. Inside California, however, what disappeared was not the AR pattern itself, but the ability to buy and experience the rifle in its most natural and intuitive form. The Colt AR-15 did not vanish from history. What vanished was the experience that made it iconic in the first place. SAR 48 comes in at number 5, and this rifle matters because it proves California bans were never only about flashy names or futuristic designs. They also swallowed serious, high-quality battle rifle imports that were respected, precisely because they were traditional. Closely tied to the FN-FAL family, the SAR 48 earned its reputation through its association with Imbel manufacturing and the period when well-made semi-automatic FAL pattern rifles were entering the American market in earnest. This was a classic full-size battle rifle in every sense, built around a 21-inch barrel, overall length just over 43 inches, and an unloaded weight that typically sits near 9.5 pounds, giving it that unmistakable feel of steel, balance, and doctrine rather than lightweight materials or modern trends. Chambered in 7.62 NATO, the SAR 48 delivers authoritative recoil, long, effective range, and practical accuracy intended for real-world distances, not bench rest competition. Like its FAL relatives, it benefits from a robust gas-operated system that emphasizes reliability and consistent function over refinement, making it the kind of rifle that inspires confidence through mass and simplicity. What made the SAR 48 especially appealing to collectors and shooters was its authenticity. It felt like a true Cold War-era battle rifle translated into semi-automatic civilian form without unnecessary gimmicks. In California, however, Feature-based assault weapon definitions slowly pushed rifles like this out of normal retail life. Detachable magazines combined with traditional military furniture turned a historically correct configuration into a legal problem, and even attempts at compliance often stripped away the very handling and appearance people valued. The result was a rifle that technically existed, but could no longer be purchased as intended. In today's free state market, SR-48 rifles are often valued in the range of $2,000 or more depending on condition and origin, prized for their build quality and historical connection. Inside California, the SAR-48 stands as a reminder that the band story is not just about the most controversial names. Sometimes it is about quietly respected imports that never became cultural villains, yet were still caught and erased by the same broad definitions. Barrett M-82, A1 and the M-10. 7A1 take the number 4 spot. And this is where California stops pretending the debate is only about appearance or features, because here, the issue is caliber. The 50 BMG ban slammed the door on what is arguably the most famous semi-automatic anti-material rifle ever built. Designed in the early 1980s, the Barrett was created to deliver extreme power at extreme distances, not as a novelty, but as a serious military tool. In standard configuration, these rifles use a massive 29-inch barrel and stretch well over 50 inches in overall length, with unloaded weight hovering around 30 pounds, immediately making it clear this is not a rifle meant to be carried casually or fired rapidly from the shoulder. Chambered in 50 BMG, the platform sends an enormous projectile downrange with energy measured in the tens of thousands of foot-pounds, giving it the ability to defeat light armor, vehicles, and hardened targets at long distances. The operating system is recoil-based, with the barrel and bolt moving together briefly before separating, while an aggressive multi-chamber muzzle brake redirects gas to reduce recoil to a level that makes repeated firing possible for trained shooters. Even with that system, firing a Barrett is a deliberate act, slow, methodical, and physically demanding, the exact opposite of any run-and-gun concept. Its reputation was earned through real military roles such as long-range interdiction and explosive ordnance work, where distance and power are safety tools, not toys. California's response was to ban the cartridge itself, treating the caliber as inherently unacceptable regardless of intent or use. In response, alternate chamberings were introduced to keep the platform legal in restricted states, but the core point remains unchanged. The original 50 BMG Barrett became a forbidden category overnight. In free states, these rifles often sell in the range of $8,000 to $12,000, depending on configuration and condition valued for their capability and history. Inside California, ownership became frozen in time, determined only by what existed before the ban rather than what a responsible buyer could choose. The Barrett did not disappear because it failed or proved unsafe. It disappeared because lawmakers decided the cartridge itself crossed a line they were unwilling to allow civilians to approach. HKVP-9 comes in at number 3, and it represents one of the clearest examples of how modern handgun design can be stopped, not by performance, but by regulation timing. Introduced in the mid-2010s, the VP-9 is a striker-fired pistol that was widely praised from the moment it launched, not because it reinvented the category, but because it refined it. The ergonomics were a standout feature, with a modular grip system that allows interchangeable backstraps and side panels, letting shooters genuinely tailor the grip to different hand sizes rather than forcing everyone into a single frame shape. In standard configuration, the VP-9 uses a barrel just over 4 inches long, an overall length around 7.5 inches, and an unloaded weight in the low 20-ounce range, making it well balanced for duty use, home defense, or range shooting. Chambered in 9mm, it delivers controllable recoil, consistent accuracy, and practical effectiveness without relying on gimmicks. One of the most talked about aspects of the VP-9 is its trigger, which offers a clean break and short, tactile reset that surprise shooters accustomed to heavier, mushier striker-fired pulls. Reliability has never been a question, as the pistol was designed to meet modern duty standards and perform across high round counts without drama. None of that mattered in California. The VP-9 arrived after the state's handgun roster. Rules had effectively frozen new entries through micro-stamping requirements that manufacturers argue are not viable at production scale. As a result, the VP9 was never added to the roster, not because it failed safety testing, but because it could not meet a regulatory condition unrelated to real-world performance. The effect has been a distorted secondary market where availability itself becomes the value. In free states, the VP9 is a normal, competitively priced modern pistol. In California, it often becomes a scarcity item, sold through limited private transfers at significant markups. The paradox is hard to ignore. A law built around the idea of safety ends up blocking proven, well-engineered handguns, not because they are dangerous or unreliable, but because they arrive too late. The HK VP9 stands as a reminder that, in California, excellence alone is not enough if the calendar and the regulations are working against you. Nighthawk Custom takes the number 2 position, and this entry is not about a single pistol, but an entire philosophy that runs directly into California's roster system. Nighthawk builds hand-fitted 1911 pistols one at a time, with each gun assembled by a single gunsmith from start to finish, placing emphasis on precision, consistency, and long-term reliability rather than production speed. Slides and frames are carefully hand-lapped until the fit is exact. Barrels are tightly matched to the bushing and locking lugs, and internal components are tuned so the pistol functions as a unified system instead of a loose collection of tolerances. Most Nighthawk pistols follow the classic government length design with a 5-inch barrel, overall length just under 9 inches, and an unloaded weight around 40 ounces, giving them the balance, recoil control, and shooting stability that made the 1911 platform legendary. One of the defining traits is the trigger, which typically breaks cleanly in the 3.5 to 4 pound range with minimal take-up and a short, positive reset, allowing for deliberate and confident shot placement. Accuracy is not treated as a best-case marketing promise, but as a baseline expectation, with many examples capable of producing tight, repeatable groups at practical distances when paired with quality ammunition. These pistols command premium prices because they require extensive skilled labor, often 30 hours or more per build, and that cost reflects time, experience, and craftsmanship rather than branding or mass production efficiency. In free states, Nighthawk pistols generally start around $3,500 and can climb well past $6,000 depending on configuration, finish, and custom options, positioning them as serious investments rather than impulse purchases. California's roster system, however, does not account for any of this. It prioritizes compliance with micro-stamping and administrative requirements that have little connection to how a pistol actually shoots, wears, or performs over time. As a result, most Nighthawk models never appear as standard retail options for California buyers, regardless of their build quality or reputation. Outside the state, a Nighthawk is a high-end but attainable expression of craftsmanship. Inside California, it becomes something far rarer, more talked about than owned. This entry makes the broader point impossible to ignore. The law does not only restrict power or capacity, sometimes it restricts choice itself, and in doing so, limits access to one of the finest expressions of modern firearm craftsmanship still being produced today. AK Series takes the #1 spot, and it earns that position because no rifle has shaped global military history the way the AK has. Designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov in the late 1940s, the AK was born from a post-war Soviet doctrine that prioritized simplicity, durability, and mass production over refinement or precision. As Cold War politics spread influence through proxy conflicts across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe, the AK followed, becoming the default rifle in regions where harsh environments and limited resources demanded equipment that simply worked. It was engineered to function when maintenance is inconsistent, training is minimal, and conditions are unforgiving. The AK's reputation for reliability is not folklore, but the direct result of deliberate engineering choices. Loose manufacturing tolerances, a long stroke gas piston system, and a robust rotating bolt allow the rifle to keep cycling through mud, sand, heat, and neglect that would disable more finely tuned designs. Most traditional AK rifles feature a 16-inch barrel, an overall length just over 35 inches with a fixed stock, and an unloaded weight typically between 7 and 8 pounds, giving the rifle a solid, controllable feel without unnecessary complexity. Chambered in 7.62 by 3.9, the platform delivers moderate velocity with strong penetration at short to medium distances, favoring consistent performance and terminal effectiveness over flat trajectories or long-range precision. Accuracy has never been the AK's strength, often falling in the 3 to 4 minute of angle range, but precision was never the objective. The rifle was built to be effective under stress, not elegant on paper. In California, many AK pattern rifles were banned by name under the 1989 framework, instantly freezing the platform's normal civilian availability in the state. Unlike feature-based restrictions, this ban drew a hard line around identity rather than function. What makes this significant is not that the AK is the most accurate or advanced rifle, because it clearly is not. It is that the AK represents a core idea of civilian ownership for many people. A durable, proven, mechanically straightforward rifle that has been part of history for generations. California did not erase the AK's legacy from wars or textbooks. It erased the ability for ordinary consumers to buy into that legacy as a normal, lawful choice. 10 firearms, 10 different stories, but the same ending. Some were banned by name, others by features, caliber, or paperwork that quietly closed the door. None of them disappeared because they failed. They vanished because laws redefined what was acceptable to own. Whether you agree or not, understanding what was lost matters, because today's regulations shape tomorrow's history. Knowing the past is the only way to see where this road is heading next.